I'm Sandy Lowe, Bold Strokes Books Senior Editor, and this is a reading panel stepping into the story. On this panel, we have Eric Peterson, Anne Shade, Anna Larner, Lauren Emily Whalen, and M. Ullrich. Hi, guys. Welcome.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
So our topic today is stepping into the story, looking at the way that our authors have represented worlds in their novels, whether it's our world, our current reality, whether it's a fantasy world that they've built, and different kinds of contexts, right? Like Lauren's book is set in a Catholic school, and whatnot. So just different places, different settings, how our authors have done that. They're going to share a reading with you today. I'm very excited. First off, we are going to start with a recording from Jenny Frame. Jenny is reading from Dying for You, which is very...
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be with you today. My name's Jenny Frame, and I'm going to be reading from my forthcoming release, Dying for You, which is the third in my vampire series. The reading is going to come from the very beginning of the book, which sets the scene. Smoke billowed from the raging torches being held by the cloaked and hooded figures beneath the arches of the replica Acropolis. The heavy beat of the drums rang out like a heartbeat, a steady rhythm that coursed through the veins of all who gathered to take part in this ancient Beltane fire festival. Daisy! Daisy McDougall moved through the dancing and singing crowds atop Calton Hill in Edinburgh to find the best spot to watch the players in the festival. The smell of the smoke from fires and the torches lit everywhere around gave her a sense of what the festival would have felt like 2,000 years ago. It was only when she bumped into a group of teenagers who were waving glowing light sticks that she came back to the present day with a bang. Daisy, can you hear me? She turned around and saw her friend Skye. Sorry, what? The shouts as well as the singing and drumming didn't make communication easy. This looks like a good spot, Skye said. Daisy walked over to Skye and her other friends, Zane and Pierce. Together, Daisy and her friends were monster hunters, a team they formed at university to explore all things paranormal. Their vlogs and website were essential watching and reading for all those who were interested in finding out if the myths and legends of paranormal beings had some substance to them. Of course, since meeting and befriending Amelia de Breck and Byron, the principate of the de Breck vampire clan, she knew the truth about the paranormal world. It was all real, but she could tell no one, as she had promised Amelia and Byron. But even though she knew the truth, Daisy still felt her friend's goal to document different mythical legends and sightings was worthwhile. Plus, she liked spending time with her friends. Okay, let's set up, Daisy said. Zane, the camera guy, came up close and tried to take off the scarf she wore around her neck. She tensed and took a step back. Don't, Zane. We need to see more of you. It's a warm spring night. Just get ready to record, Zane. It's up to me what I wear, Daisy said. He pursed his lips in anger, but then backed off. It was a warm May evening, but she had to wear this warm scarf to cover the bite she had received from Victoria Dread. Victoria was the leader and principate of the Dread vampire clan, a clever and remorseless killer and enemy to the de Breck clan. Much to Daisy's horror, she and Victoria Dread were now blood bonded. The night Victoria attacked Amelia de Breck at the Sanctuary, a club where paranormals and humans mingled, Daisy protected her friend and Victoria had tried to drain her blood at the neck. But instead of killing her, Victoria recoiled at the first taste, and they'd shared a moment in time that Daisy still didn't understand. Afterwards, when the bite mark didn't heal as it should have done, Daisy came to understand that her DNA was compatible with Victoria's, and she had become blood bonded to her, just like Amelia was to Byron de Brec. Byron explained that Victoria now needed Daisy's blood to survive, just like Byron needed Amelia's, or she would plunge into madness. Of course, Byron and Amelia loved each other and gladly accepted their bond. Victoria was a homicidal killer, and she would only use and abuse Daisy for blood. Daisy had been keeping a low profile at Byron's insistence for a few months, but she couldn't miss going to the Beltane Fire Festival in Edinburgh. It was one of the best nights for paranormal events in the calendar, and one where monster hunters had to be. So together with her team and 2 guards, Owen and Trista, whom Byron insisted watch over her, she travelled from London to Edinburgh yesterday. Pierce, the sound man, walked up to her and said, "Zane takes every opportunity, doesn't he? To touch me, to get too close?" "Yes," Daisy said with frustration. "I'll talk to him. He's besotted with you. Has been ever since we met at uni. Would you please? When he's filming me, I feel like he's undressing me with the camera lens," Daisy said. "Don't worry, honey, I will." "Who are these weird men in black who are following us?" Owen and Trista stood behind Skye and Zane to protect her from Victoria, because she would be out there somewhere plotting to get Daisy and use her as a blood bank. Daisy couldn't tell Pierce the truth, so she said, "Byron got some threats from some terrorist group, and she thought because I'm so close to Amelia, I should be protected." She had to distract Pierce from her wafer-thin explanation. "And they're not in the way, are they?" Pierce looked back at them and grinned. "No, especially the big guy that looks like a rugby player. What's his name?" "Owen, and the woman is Trista." "Maybe you could do your best to distract him, so he's not breathing down my neck all the bloody time." Pierce waggled his eyebrows. "I'll gladly distract him any way I can." "Let's start filming now. The main players are just a minute away." "Good luck, babe," Pierce said. Both Pierce and Zane were ready with their equipment. Daisy closed her eyes and let the beat of the drums get her into the right headspace. She ran over a few of the lines she'd written for her piece to camera, but with her eyes still closed, she felt someone's breath in her neck and in her ear. She jumped, looked around for anyone who could have done it, but the groups of people around her hadn't moved. The bite Victoria gave her started to tingle, and she felt the urge to give herself to the blood bond. It was a feeling that had dogged her ever since that night at the sanctuary. Sometimes it was light like now, and sometimes overwhelming. Daisy assumed it was the same for Victoria. "Daisy, you okay?" Skye shouted. "Yeah, let's do this." Daisy tried to shake off the feeling. "In 10 then," Skye said and started counting down. Daisy put on her bright, smiling face and began. "Hi, monster hunters. We are lucky enough to be at the Beltane Fire Festival in Edinburgh. It's April the 30th and a very important time of year in the Celtic calendar. It's said that the veil between our world and the land of the gods, the dead, and the monsters is thin and allows them to visit our world." She turned around and indicated to the large crowds. "Adults and children all come to see this display, a reinterpretation of an ancient Iron Age Celtic festival. Beltane means bright fire, and the Celts would come together to celebrate the return of spring. It marked the turning of the wheel of the year, fertility and hope. Daisy walked up close to the camera and beckoned their audience closer and whispered, "And rumours are that the paranormal and monsters that we search for come out to play on Beltane night and mix unnoticed with the painted players and reenactors of this festival. Let me introduce you to some of the actors in this drama." "Cut," Sky said. "Brill, Daisy, perfect as usual. The actors will be here in a sec." I hope you liked that small reading from my new vampire book, which will be out March the 1st. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the readings. Cheers.
Awesome. That was Jenny Frame reading from Dying for You. And I love that red light, very atmospheric. All right, we're going to go from the fantasy world of vampires to the real world of love and lotus blossoms with Anne Shade. Here she is. Hi, Anne.
Hello.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Love and Lotus Blossoms and where it's set, and start reading.
Sure. Love and Lotus Blossoms is a coming of age story about Janess Crawford / Phillips. And she has moved to Montclair, New Jersey at the age of 14 when her parents divorced. And she's starting her life over, and she's not too thrilled about it. And the scene is set in at her arrival in Montclair and what happened during that first time. And my picture is back here because it's set in Montclair, New Jersey, where I grew up. And I was 14 when I moved here and 18 when I left, just as Janess was. Hence why the pictures. So it's kind of set the mood. This was not how I imagined starting my summer break, sitting miserably in the third row seat of our family station wagon, traveling thousands of miles from everything I knew and loved. Okay, maybe not thousands of miles, but still. My 5-year-old little brother, Jacob Jr., JJ for short, had turned the entire second row seat into his personal war zone with his G.I. Joes battling his Justice League heroes for the right to be his favorite action figures of the week. My sister Jackie was moping in the front seat next to Mom with her face buried in a book, as she had deemed us not worthy of speaking to since the last rest stop. We embarrassed her by singing along with the Jacksons' ABC playing throughout the loudspeaker. We were on our way to Montclair, New Jersey, where we were moving to be closer to Mom's family who lived throughout New Jersey and New York. Jackie wasn't too thrilled. I'm sorry, that's my dog. Jackie wasn't too thrilled until she found out we would only be a 30-minute train ride from New York City and her dream of becoming a Broadway star. My brother was clueless and only saw it as a new adventure. I, on the other hand, hated having to move away from all my friends and having to start high school in a new city with a bunch of strangers. Here I was, away from everything I'd ever known in my entire 14 years on Earth. Okay, maybe that was a bit dramatic, but not having a choice in the matter still sucked. "Hey gang, we're just one exit away from our new life," Mom said. "Yay!" JJ cheered. He popped up next to me and tapped me on the shoulder. "Aren't you excited, Ness?" I tore my gaze from the fascinating view of other speeding cars, looked past my brother's grinning face, and met my mother's eyes pleading with me through the rearview mirror. I looked back at JJ, gave him my best big sister smile, and lied straight to his sweet, innocent face. "Yes, I am, buddy." I planted a wet, sloppy kiss on his cheek, just the way he liked it, but had pretended it was gross. "Yucky, Ness." He wiped his cheek in mock disgust, then grabbed Batman to look out the window. Exit 148, Bloomfield, Montclair, 1 mile. 1 mile for me to just accept my situation and make the best of it. Look at it the way Mom had been trying to tell me to do, as if it was a new adventure in our life journey. Looking at my brother and sister reminded me that their lives were also changing. With her 18th birthday just a month away, I asked Jackie why she hadn't stayed in Indy and to go to school. She said that Mom needed her. Thinking back on how Mom reacted when Dad asked her for a divorce, Jackie was probably right. Mom called it an episode. The doctors called it a nervous breakdown. Mom had to go away for a month, and Dad had no idea how to run the household since he traveled so much for work. Jackie became the glue that kept our family together. Personally, that seemed like a lot for a 17-year-old to take on. I sure couldn't do it. I looked at Mom. She seemed generally happy for the first time in a long time. If this move kept her from going to the dark place, then I could force myself to shut up and accept it, whether I liked it or not. Besides, we would be going to visit Dad at the end of the summer. I could see all my friends then. We're here, Mom said. Jackie decided this was worthy of looking up from her book as we pulled up to a 3-story multifamily house. This is it, she said, not hiding her frown of disappointment. Mom's happy expression fell a bit. I know it's not what you guys are used to, but it's just until we can get back on our feet once the house in Indiana is sold. Jackie looked as if she wished she could take back what she said. I know, Mom, I'm sorry. It looks really nice. I think it's kind of cute, I said. The house was surrounded by a wrought iron fence and waist-high hedges and was painted a soft yellow with dark green trim and shutters on the windows. There was a wraparound porch with a few lounge chairs, and a large tree stood neatly trimmed in the front yard, with a scattering of rock sculpture bunnies and a flower bed around the base. Mom gave me a relieved smile. Your uncle should be here with the moving truck any minute now. Why don't we go in so you guys can look around before we get busy unloading? We all climbed out of the car, and I took JJ's hand as we followed Mom up the walkway. As soon as the door was open, JJ let go of my hand and took off to explore his new surroundings. There was a large main room with a fireplace that was so neat and clean, it looked as if it hadn't been used for an actual fire in years. Windows were on either side of the fireplace, facing out to a backyard that had a garage and more concrete for parking than grass. A big bay window looked out in front of the house, and there was an open archway that led to the kitchen. Next to the kitchen was a bedroom and bathroom, and on the other side of the room were 2 more bedrooms. I walked over to the bathroom, stood in the doorway and sighed. It wasn't large, but it was clean. There's only 3 bedrooms, Jackie whispered as she came up beside me. Guess we're back to sharing a room. It must not have been the answer she wanted to hear because she sucked her teeth and walked away. I know this is I turned away from the bathroom, walked over to Mom as she stared out the front window, slipped an arm around her waist and laid my head on her shoulder. I know this is a big change for you guys, but I think it's a change for the better. She sounded so hopeful that it felt wrong for me to even consider this change as something negative. A new adventure? I said. Exactly. I'm sure you're probably not too thrilled having to share a room with your sister again, but this was the best place your uncle and I could find that's centrally located. Mom, you don't have to sell me on this. I know you're doing the best that you can. Thanks, Ness. I really need to hear that. A U-Haul truck rumbled up the street and stopped in front of the house. Mom sighed. Your uncle's here. Let's get to work. JJ came bouncing happily out of the bedroom he had staked his claim on. Ness, I have a secret hiding place in my room. That's pretty cool, buddy. Let's go help Mom and Uncle Frank. He took my hand as he bounced down each step from the porch, then took off to throw himself into Uncle Frank's arms. Jackie stepped up beside me. Her eyes looked red and puffy, as if she'd been crying. I grasped her hand as we walked toward the truck, and she gave it a brief squeeze before releasing it and walking ahead of me. That's it.
Thank you, Anne. That was a great reading for a sense of place and setting.
Thank you. Sorry about the dog.
No, that's fine. What's his name? Her name?
Paco.
Paco. Cool.
Yes.
All right. Overall, hopefully Paco will join us on Zoom one of these days.
Yes, I'll have to go get him.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty. Next up, we have Eric Peterson. Hello. Welcome back.
Hi there, Sandy.
Eric, you're reading from Loyalty, Love, and Vermouth. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the setting of your novel and start your reading?
Sure. Well, this is Loyalty, Love, and Vermouth. It is a novel about chosen family, and there's a lot of flashbacks in this book. And one of them tells the story, which is very autobiographical, about how these 2 women who I still refer to this day as my adoptive lesbian moms kind of took me under their wing when I came out of the closet. And one of the things that really cemented that relationship was a quick trip to Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. So in a flashback, this is about chapter 5 in the novel. This is Charlie's first trip to Rehoboth. I don't remember how exactly I made my confession, but it all came pouring out. About the rehearsal, about the kiss, about how I'd lied to her before at the pub, but it wasn't really a lie because I hadn't known I was lying, about growing up in a Navy family and going to a Catholic college, about how free I felt, but how humiliating it was to be finally coming out in my mid-20s. When I finally stopped to breathe, I looked at them. waiting for a response. I knew it, Irene said. I'm never wrong. Don't gloat, honey. Jean placed her hands on my shoulders. Are you okay? I nodded. Tears were hovering on my eyeballs, obscuring my view. Are we the first people you've told? As I nodded again, the first tear fell and she hugged me tight. Oh, honey, she said, it's going to be okay. In fact, it all gets better from here. Believe me. What are you doing 3 weeks from now? Irene asked. Memorial Day weekend after the show closes. Nothing, I stammered, still cocooned in Jean's embrace. Because if you had any plans, you need to cancel them, Irene said. You're going to the beach with us. 3 weeks later, I was nestled in the backseat of Jean and Irene's Subaru Outback, which I shared with their miniature schnauzer, Bo. We were headed for Rehoboth Beach, where they kept a little boat. On weekends during the summer, they would sleep on the boat and spend their days on the boardwalk or the beach, and their nights in any number of bars and restaurants or the weekend estates of friends and wealthy acquaintances who made a living in Washington, Baltimore, or Philly, but made a life in Rehoboth. Tallulah Bankhead had brought her female lovers to Rehoboth in the 1940s, and while it was never the gay mecca that Provincetown or Fire Island were, it's as close as the mid-Atlantic gets. Weekend in Rehoboth is sort of like moving to San Francisco. It doesn't make you gay, although it does make you wonder. At the very least, it makes you gay-friendly. This would be my first visit. I'd been looking forward to it and also dreading it for weeks. 3 weeks, to be exact. When we arrived at the boat slip, Irene fastened a leash to Bo, who darted toward the water, pulling Irene along. Jean and I followed behind as they showed me where I'd be sleeping in the hull of the boat. From there, we went for drinks at the Blue Moon, followed by dinner at Confucius, which isn't particularly gay, but it's got the best goddamn Peking duck you've ever tasted. Then more drinks and dancing at the Renegade. The next day, Irene took me to Lambda Rising, the town's gay bookstore, where she purchased a tome of first-person gay history with instructions to read the entire thing. She also took great delight in finding a copy of The New Joy of Gay Sex and loudly plunking it down on the counter, announcing to everyone in the store, I am buying this for him. I wanted to melt into the floor. Within the next month, of course, I'd read them both cover to cover, sometimes pausing to appreciate the pencil drawings in the latter. That night, we attended a garden party hosted by friends of Jean and Irene, where I met more gay baby boomers in one enormous beach house than I dreamed existed on the entire planet. If I squinted, it kind of looked like the gathering my parents would have attended. Lots of khakis and Hawaiian shirts. Only on closer inspection did I notice that all the men were arriving with other men and the women with other women. At one point, one of the men I met, after hearing my story, adopted an arch accent and told me to take notes of any words I didn't understand. This was clearly a reference to something, but I wasn't yet versed in the homosexual lexicon. Everyone laughed uproariously, but I didn't get the joke. My cheeks began to flush with embarrassment, but a smile from Jean let me know that no one was laughing at my expense. On Sunday, we went to Poodle Beach, where the gay people sunbathe and frolic in the ocean. I don't remember much other than being too self-conscious to take my shirt off while surrounded by all these perfect bronzed bodies. Not knowing, 20 years later, I'd look back on photos from my coming out weekend and marvel at how skinny I was. After an exhausting day of lying in the sand and doing nothing, we were ready for a quick shower, more drinks at the Blue Moon, dinner at the back porch, and more drinks at Cloud 9, where we floated away until morning. By the way, that bit about the bookstore is absolutely true, word for word, one of the worst moments of my life.
And I'm dying because I think I know who your adopted.
You know her. Yeah, you know that one.
In real life, so it's even better to know. That was awesome. Thank you so much. I've been to Rehoboth Beach, and I can tell you that it does not make you gay, but it does make you wonder. I will conclude that. Thank you. Next up, we have Anna Larner. We are going from Rehoboth Beach to the Scottish Highlands. Hello, hello.
Yes, that's right. We're off to the beautiful Highland hamlet of Newland, and with my new release. Shall I tell you about it?
Yes, please tell us.
Okay, so this is Highland Woe. here's the cover there. And I'm really excited to, as I say, take you for my sneak peek of the world of the Highland hamlet of Newland, to tell you a little about Highland Whirl. It's a low angst, opposites attract, contemporary romance, and the sequel to my 2017 debut novel, Highland Fling. Highland Whirl starts 4 years on from Highland Fling, and the premise is Roxanne Barnes, Eve Edison's best mate, accepts an invite from Eve up to Scotland, where Eve is living with her new partner, Moira Burns, and is having a 30th birthday party. Roxanne really doesn't want to go at all. Doesn't want to see Eve's new life and her new love and how that might make her feel lonely. She's also dreading seeing the feisty Highlander Alice Campbell, who Roxanne met at the time of Highland Fling. The very last thing she expects is to fall for Alice. The scene that I've chosen is to show you the world of Alice Campbell and her home of Newland, and the snow-capped mountains and the beautiful flora and fauna. It's the first scene where we meet Alice, all grown up after her turbulent time and during Highland Fling. I often think that the home of a character tells us so much more about the character even than what they say or what they do. And Newland is very much Alice Campbell through and through. So here we go, Highland World and the beautiful Newland. Spring was, without question, Alice Campbell's favourite season, and April in turn was by far her favourite month. For winter, with its consuming whiteness, had at last relinquished its icy grip on the woods, heath and moorland of Newland. Only the mountain tops, glinting white on the distant horizon, hinted at winter's recent brooding retreat. Alice shielded her eyes from the searching soft rays of the morning sun that fell upon the grassy track that divided the burgeoning green of Broadland woodland from a crofter's field and the heath beyond. She sat for a moment at the edge of the track, with her back resting against a proud old oak and her legs stretched out. Her eyes closed at the feel of the warmth of the sun on her cheeks as she listened to the melodic sound of Newland bursting into life. For there was a percussion in the rhythm of the wind blowing through the long grasses, and in the round tone of the xylophone-like notes of the water flowing over pebbles in the nearby stream. And then, as if a conductor had brought them in with a wave of his baton, a family of willow warblers called and answered in soulful harmony. There was simply no orchestra and no musician that could compete with the symphony of home. She reopened her eyes at the gentle nudge at her boot. Hello, wee girl. She resisted the temptation to reach out to stroke the soft pink nose of the lamb, now snuffling at her thigh. I can't fuss you, she said, and have you smell of me. Go to your mum, go now. She stood to usher the inquisitive newborn back towards the throaty bleat of its mother, and lingered for a moment to watch the lamb nestle beneath its mother's stomach, with its tail frantically wagging with delight. Alice gave a heavy sigh at the sight of a section of fallen fence that lined the boundary of the wood and the local crofter's field. First thing that morning on a weekly round of checks of the Newland Forest Trust land, she'd found 2 fence posts toppled onto the path. Their timber rails had fallen in piles like a discarded game of Jenga. She propped up the damaged posts against the side of her Land Rover while she phoned through to her colleagues at the Trust's Education Centre to get a helping hand to mend the fallen fence. She couldn't have felt prouder to work for the Trust, and alongside such a dedicated team of local volunteers. Together they cared for and shared their enthusiasm and knowledge of the community-owned forest and its surrounding heath and moors. As an education officer, every working day was different. She relished the variety of hands-on tasks that often went beyond what might be traditionally expected of her teacher training. But to work for the Trust was to be multi-skilled. And as someone who had lived in Newland from the age of 7, she learned to care for the land in the same breath as she had mastered tying her shoelaces, or riding a bike, or reeling off her times tables. Mending a fallen fence was simply a matter of daily life. She checked her watch, 10:15. She glanced along the track to where it bent away towards the centre and beyond the road that curled through Newland village. Help would be here any moment. There was no question as to the fence-felling culprits. A telltale browse line of nibbled side shoots running on the lower edges of the oak's trunk marked the vandal's calling card, not to mention a clear trampled path leading into the denser woodland. Overnight rain had slightly obscured their prints, but a collection of their pellets sealed the deal. There was no doubt it was red deer. Young males would often gather and tussle and rub their stubby antlers against fence posts. A trail of broken fencing and confused escapee lambs would be left in their wake. With the persistence of youth, the lamb made its way once more towards Alice. No, no, she said through a smile. Come now, haven't we had this chat about no cuddling? Thank you.
Thank you. I love it. I've never been to Scotland, but I feel like some of that is also true for upstate New York, where I live, where there's lots of farmland and farms. And so I felt it too. What's your favorite thing about the Scottish Highlands?
I think they're very unique, and they are properly breathtaking. I was inspired to write Newland because I stayed in a place which obviously isn't called Newland, which I've fictionalized, but actually stayed there, and we were really quite high up, sort of effortlessly got quite high, and you could see, you literally were surrounded 360 degrees by snow-capped mountains, and everything was so beautiful. The greenery and the flora and the fauna and the wildness of it. It's, if you haven't been, it's absolutely beautiful, and the lochs are so deep and moody, and just breathtaking and very inspiring for writers and artistic, also painters, and it's beautiful place.
Awesome. Well, it's definitely on my bucket list for when the world opens back up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Lauren Emily Whalen, going from the Scottish Highlands to Catholic school.
Hi, everyone. As Sandy said, I'm Lauren Emily Whalen. I'm going to be reading from my September release, Two Winters, which is a modern day queer YA retelling of Shakespeare's play, The Winter's Tale. And the second half is set in Chicago, where I live, in 2014. But the first half is set in 1997 in a small farm town in downstate Illinois at primarily a Catholic school. And the selection I'm going to be reading, it's a scene between Paulina, the narrator of the first half, and her love interest, Ani. They've gone up through Catholic school together. They're now juniors in high school. They have become more than friends, but again, small town Catholics, 1997, not exactly the best place to be out as a queer teenage girl. So here we go. I can't do this anymore. She'd taken her lips off mine, and I felt every bit of the cold air between us. She brushed her bottom lip with her thumb as though trying to wipe away any trace of me, the girl she'd been kissing desperately just a moment before. My heart sank to my rubber-soled boots, the melting ice seeping through the hole I really needed to patch. Like clockwork, all of it. Ani and I stood in the alley behind El Rancherito, making out on my break. No one else was around, and we were hidden from plain sight in a convenient blind spot we'd found months ago. When she dropped this bomb, as she did every freaking week, I could still taste her chapstick on my lips, a waxy strawberry. I never told her, but after our first kiss, I bought a stick of it that I kept under my pillow. Ani was Anne-Marie to her parents, our teachers, and her beloved volleyball coach. She nicknamed herself last year after discovering Ani DeFranco, whose smoky voice and authentic lyrics were ideal for two girls fooling around in secret. Unfortunately, calling herself Ani was her one and only act of outright rebellion. She was the third of 7 kids, living in an old farmhouse outside of town when there were still unpaved roads, the type of stereotypical Catholic family that was now pretty rare. In my dad's generation, 12 or 13 kids in a family named Sheehan or O'Brien or Donahue were as much a part of St. Cecilia's as the gray speckled linoleum in the hallway. But modern Catholic parents knew the rhythm method didn't work, and I suspected most of them were ignoring church edicts and using birth control. Ani was a star in the way my friends Mia and Tesla were not. They were alterna popular, she was mainstream. the cool girl in a Molly Ringwald movie. She was third in the class academic ranks after Tez and me, or me and Tez, depending on the week, and varsity volleyball since she was a freshman. Her parents both grew up here, but met at Notre Dame, the holy grail of Catholic universities. Her two older brothers were currently kicking ass on ND's football team, while one of her sisters was at the affiliate St. Mary's, what they called a smick chick. Ani would be a shoo-in for either school with the trifecta of grades, sports, and legacy. What Ani didn't have was a boyfriend. The guys at St. Cecilia's found this personally offensive. The nicer ones made a big deal of asking her to homecoming and prom. She humored them, first come, first serve, but it never went anywhere after the dance itself. The seedier types had a running bet over who could take her virginity. Donna from 8th grade volleyball camp beat them to it, and no one knew that but me for third. Ani was my first, and last, and only, if I had my way. Back in 5th grade, Ani, Mia, and I were a united front, forming the I Hate Boys Club that met every recess with an exclusive membership of 3. When we were 13, though, Mia found music, Ani got into volleyball, hardcore, and I focused on making my NASA dreams real through studying. Then last year happened. Mia had just started sleeping with Tez, and consequently, the two of us had drifted apart. I got into the habit of hanging out before and after my shifts, doing homework with ambient restaurant noise in the background. Mia's dad, Lynn, patted my back as soon as he came in from the office, and Mia's mom, Carmen, slipped me free chips and salsa, the telltale, "We know our daughter's abandoned you for her boyfriend" expression on their faces. I hated the pity, but I loved free chips. One Saturday afternoon after the lunch shift, Ani came in and slid across from me in the booth where I was working on pre-calc. Her forearms rested on the sticky table, salsa remnants I could never quite wipe clean. She was tan even in the winter, thanks to the local salon. Her wrists were strong, a silver charm bracelet dangling off the right. At the time, I'd wondered if a potential suitor had given it to her. "Hey," she'd said. "Hey," I'd said back. I met her eyes, the bluest I'd ever seen, like summer sky above the cornfields just outside of town. And one thing led to another, and another, and another. "You say this every time," I said, trying like hell to keep my voice calm and measured, when really I wanted to scream in frustration, and not just emotional frustration, if you get my drift. Ani fully broke away from me. The warm imprint of her body lingered on mine. I could still feel the soft cotton of her polo shirt and her bare back under my hands, but it wasn't enough. Never was. "This isn't me," she said, gesturing between us. She paced the alley's blind spot furiously. Her huge Adidas sneakers inched closer to a patch of black ice. I wanted to reach out, pull her back to safety, to me, but I knew from experience she didn't want to be touched. You're not what?" I lifted my chin. At this point in our relationship, or whatever you could call fooling around in an alley until Ani denied who she was, then ignored me for 3 days before we started the whole damn cycle again, I could recite her defenses word for word, and I was getting very tired of them. "The type who kisses girls? Because newsflash, that's what you were doing 10 seconds ago. You know what I mean." Ani threw up her hands, perfectly manicured with short nails, ideal for sports, and as we'd learned after the Christmas dance, other things. My dream girl, who'd said more than once she wished I were a boy so we could really and truly date. Those were the nights I went home and cried. And then I was the one who ignored her for at least 4 days until I couldn't stay away any longer. "No, I don't know." I crossed my arms over my chest. "We've had sex, Ani." She rolled her eyes and my heart hurt. "Okay. It's not wrong to like girls." My voice went from strong and true to small and weak in just a few words. Because as much as I wanted to believe my statement, I wasn't sure it could be so in Havendale, Illinois. "Really," Ani said. Now backed up against the other wall of the alley, she rested a sneakered foot against the brick wall, looking like an ad for the All-American Girl. I wish I didn't find that type so sexy. "Why don't you tell that to Father Robert?" She smirked, knowing she had me. Face flaming, I turned away. "That's what I thought," Ani said over her shoulder, leaving me behind in the alley's blind spot. From here, she'd go back into the restaurant and rejoin her volleyball friends, tell them she left her chapstick in the car or something. They'd believe her, laughing and spilling salsa without even leaving me $1. Never mind that their parents paid for everything and I was saving for college. Didn't seem to matter to Ani that she was the one who always initiated things at my house when my mom was at work, in this quiet space that smelled like flour tortillas, or even once in the locker room shower when she swore everyone else had gone home. What sucked the most, though? Ani was right. I thought of Cameron Smith. No one really knew who she was into, but the worst of the bullies loved calling our classmate Dyke and Lil Leslie. They broke into her locker to leave Victoria's Secret catalog pages when they weren't leaving cow shit. I'd heard of worse things in towns just like ours. Kids getting beaten up, even killed, because they liked someone of the same sex. Those stories never got much coverage at the Havendale Gazette, but I read newspapers from bigger cities in the public library sometimes, searching frantically to find a mention of someone like me, even if it involved death, which it usually did. Every time I learned about another incident, I shivered. I liked guys and girls. Others like me had to exist. But even on TV, everyone was either gay or straight. What would my meaner classmates think? What would they do? I hated what Ani said, but I was just as bad, fooling around with her in private, keeping my secrets because I was too chicken shit to deal with the fallout. And now she was gone. Thank you.
Oh, well, if that doesn't take you right back to high school, I don't know what does.
Just a little bit.
Man, I feel like their emotions are almost the setting there. It doesn't even matter where they are. Their angst is so well developed on the page. That was awesome. Thank you, Lauren.
You.
All right, last but certainly not least, we have M. Ullrich. Going back in time just a few weeks to the holidays.
Yeah, let's jump back a little bit. And we're coming all the way back around to New Jersey.
Oh.
So we started in Jersey and we're ending in Jersey. I'll be reading from Holiday Wishes and Mistletoe Kisses. It is a collection of holiday romance novellas that are all tied together by the characters and their relationships. The setting I put together for this book, or the world I built, if you want to call it that, is more of a feeling. It takes place over Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. And to me, that is a setting in and of itself, but also home is a big setting, whether it is a character's home or close friends or family, or their local gay bar that feels safer than their own home does sometimes. So the scene I'm reading is from Christmas Eve, and it is revolving around Liv and Theo, a married couple who are struggling because they're not quite on the same page when it comes to having kids. So it is Christmas Eve night, and Liv is drowning her sorrows at their favorite bar. Liquor had a magical way of clinging and trickling down the side of a glass. Not quite watery, not quite thick, but a texture all its own. "You are special," Liv said, tapping her fingertips to the glass. She watched a small droplet join the last mouthful of her honey whiskey. "You make me feel special." Her voice sounded loud in the empty bar. The bartender's shadow obscured Liv's focus. "You sure have a lot to say to that drink of yours." Liv threw back the rest of her whiskey and handed the glass over. "I do, which means I need a refill. Otherwise, it won't have ears to listen." Liv chose to ignore the bartender's glare. "I appreciate you, Dot." Liv drummed her hands on the worn bar top as she waited for her third drink of the night. Maybe it was her fourth. She gave Dot her most charming grin. "Dot, Dottie, Dot," Liv said as she pointed. "You believe in Christmas miracles?" Dot placed Liv's drink down on a damp napkin. "Sure. What about wishes come true?" "I suppose. Anything can happen, really." Liv took a sip and nodded. Dot continued, "I think wishes are just seeds. It's step one. You plant them. We think or say the words, and we get started. Then it's up to you whether you really do want it badly enough." Liv sipped again and she considered Dot's words. What's step 2? Doing the hard work to get whatever it is you want. Wow, Liv said, staring at the wall of bottles across from her. That's deep, Dot, and not at all what I wanted to hear. She laughed at her own honest joke. Dot leaned on the bar and offered Liv a gentle smile. Cheer up, sober up, go home, and put in the work. It is the night before Christmas. Liv brought the glass to her lips, but paused before drinking. And all through the house, one creature went drinking to avoid her spouse. Liv finished her drink in one long swallow. She smiled at Dot's worried look. The spirits were warm and poured with care by an angel named Dot with long dark hair. You're a poet, Liv snorted. Hardly. Am I remembering wrong? I'm pretty sure those aren't the words. No, they're not. Liv checked her empty glass, hoping for a refill, but knowing better than to ask for one. There's no children nestled in bed, and I can't quite picture what that's like in my head. I think it's time for you to call a ride. Do you have any kids, Dot? I do. How many? 3. Wow, how's that? Dot laughed and then blew out a long breath. Her dark eyes were sparkling in the low lighting. Exhausting, frustrating, exhausting, busy, but also incredibly rewarding. Everyone says that, because it's true. I can't even really explain it. Liv felt a deep sense of skepticism. How did you know you were ready for kids? She held her head up in her hands, elbows firm on the wooden bar. The night might have been young, but Liv was tired. Honestly, I didn't know if I was ready when my first one came along. He was a surprise to both of us. The cogs in Liv's brain moved slowly, but she got it. Oh, a surprise pregnancy. But the more she thought about it, the less she understood it. How? I thought you were gay because I work here? Dot stood up straight with her hands on her hips and a firm expression on her attractive face. Although she couldn't have been much older than Liv's 36, she knew how to scold with a look. Definitely a mom. Liv knew her face was reddened from embarrassment and mild shame, but damn it, why wouldn't she assume such a thing? Well, yes, Sylvia's. Sylvia's is a gay bar. After a moment, Dot's face softened. You aren't wrong, but I was married to a wonderful man for over 10 years. We had 2 kids together. I knew I was gay the whole time, but I stayed because I thought it was what was best for the kids. What happened? You sure do ask a lot of questions. Liv shrugged. I'm drunk. Can I ask you a question now? Shoot, Liv said, firing finger guns at Dot. It's Christmas Eve. Why are you avoiding your spouse? She looked out the small front window of Sylvia's, and it looked much colder outside than inside the warm, quaint bar. She noticed a light sprinkling of flurries drifting through the air. Still, she didn't feel an ounce of holiday cheer. Theo was moody and I was a crank, and we ended up fighting over a sperm bank. She said. Liv's phone buzzed and she checked it. My ride will be here in 5 minutes. I think I'll wait outside and get some fresh air. How much is my tab? She stood and made sure she was steady on her feet before patting her pockets for her belongings. Liv remembered she didn't leave with much, just her phone and debit card. It's on the house, Liv. Merry Christmas. Thanks. Liv smiled and turned toward the door. She stepped out into the brisk evening. She hated how at barely 6 o'clock the sky was pitch black. The snow whipped around her dramatically, and she looked up and down the streets for a familiar car. People rushed across the road, the exhaust pipes blew clouds into the air. She could hear the chiming bells from busy shops and the distant sound of Christmas music playing. She shivered. The cold, snowy streets were alive with clatter, she said quietly, her breath the only thing giving her away. And I can't help but think, does any of this matter?
Okay, so bonus points for the poetry, because
Thank you.
that is not easy.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, on a really timely and interesting topic that we're going to need to talk about later.
Okay, I'm in.
All right, if everyone can jump back real quick. Hello. Welcome back.
Sandy, I think you need to start my video because it says the host has stopped it.
Give me a second.
No worries.
All
right.
There we go. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Oh my God. Okay, we are just about out of time, so we're gonna do one quick speed round. Tell us your favorite thing about the setting in your novel, and you can interpret that broadly, whether it's the holiday season or the place where your novel is set, or what you love about your hometown. Tell us your favorite thing, Eric.
Well, my favorite thing in the world of my novel is just the world of a chosen family. It just has meant a lot to me throughout my entire life, and it was great fun to be able to write about that.
Awesome. Lauren.
I like the descriptions of the cornfields and the blue sky, which was inspired by a friend of mine who grew up in New Jersey visiting my hometown and being like, this looks like a movie. I can't believe there are actual cornfields. Look at that. So I had a lot of fun describing that.
Awesome. Anne.
I liked going back and remembering all the little things about Montclair that are no longer there. And just, I actually went back and walked through the neighborhood and just to be able to reminisce and remember what it was like.
Sure. M.
Well, look, holiday season, but also, like I said, like that sense of home. I am a homebody, and this past Christmas was actually one of the first holidays where I took a huge role in hosting. So there's just like that warm, homey feeling, and that's definitely my favorite part. That togetherness, that warmth, that homey, all of that.
Cool. Next the holiday season at M's house. And Anna, I asked you about something new that you love about the Scottish Highlands.
Yeah, I think it shows us how Alice Campbell's mastery of the wildness of Scotland, how it makes her really cool and brave, and the setting just brings her character out. And I love that about it.
Yeah, for sure. Some people really suit the place that they're in, and it's awesome. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much. And we'll see you in just a few minutes for our next panel, Love at Work.
Thank you.
Bye.
Till next time.